Hello, everyone. We're going to begin the meeting tonight. We do have a public hearing first, so I'll call this public hearing to order. Roll call, please.
Mr. King? Mr. Schuster?
Present.
Dr. Rothchild? Here. Mr. McAndrew?
Present.
Mr. Smurl?
Here.
The purpose of said public hearing is to hear testimony and discuss the following. File the Council number 83, 2025, establishing Hampton Street as a one-way eastbound roadway from 12th Avenue to South Main Avenue.
Okay, there's no one on the sign-in sheet for this. This is to turn the one-way street in up by the school. It's to prepare for developing a school zone up there. And we're going to put the rest of that on hold because the school board would like to put that on hold for right now. But we're going to go forward with the street so that if they do proceed with the school zone, that we're not going to be holding them up. Any council people have any? No? Okay. If there's no further business, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
All right, this public hearing is adjourned. Now we will get on to Scranton parking system. David, are you going to start with the presentation?
Yeah, I'll start the presentation, but maybe some quick introductions first. We have a little bit of a bigger crowd today, and we have a larger agenda than usual. This will be our second quarter parking update for City Council, but we also have the parking debt restructuring on the agenda, so a little bit more. And so we have some other folks here. I'd like them to introduce themselves.
Hello, good evening again. Scott Shearer with PFM, the city's financial advisor.
Hi, it's Liz Preate, Havey, special counsel to the city.
Turn the microphones on, please.
Liz Preate Havey, special counsel to the city with respect to this transaction.
Thanks.
Jessica Esquire, city solicitor.
And Dave Trevisani with CDP Scranton. I think we'll start the meeting with our typical operations update. I mean, Jake will take us through a few sides. There is a lot on the agenda, and I want to make sure we have time for questions, and there's a parking authority meeting that some of us need to attend. So I asked Jake to keep his presentation short. There isn't a lot of new stuff there, but again, feel free to ask questions, but I've asked Jake to kind of keep it short today for the benefit of others.
All right, good evening. Excuse me. Starting with commercial leases, nothing new there. Zullo did extend for 2 years over at the Medallion Garage. Bartari and Comics on the Green will be up this year. We're working to extend them. Looking at the capital projects, the updates here being that the sewer system over at Medallion and the AC upgrades at Linden, those are both under contract. We hope to have those done within the next 4 to 6 months. Also looking here, fire pump issue over at Casey. We're just updating a few different quotes, and that work will start shortly. Lastly, there was some shoring issue that we discovered during a Walker parking study on the garages that we'll be addressing immediately. Lastly, on the slide, July 1, we did start a mobilization. As of right now, no one has been barnacled, but we did see an uptick on outstanding tickets being paid over the last little while.
Thank you, Jake. Before I change slides, on the shoring issue, so we did hire Walker Consulting, which is a parking consulting firm, to do a needs assessment of all of the garages. And this is one of the things that came back. We're not sure to how big of a problem it is. We don't think it's significant, but the reason we did that study was so that we understand what the needs of the parking garages are. Remember, we did this in 2016, so we've been keeping the garages up and doing preventative maintenance, but we haven't made any significant capital investments, and garages need attention. So part of what we're going to be doing going forward is to try to be setting aside some monies to take care of these kind of things into the future. So, thank you.
Last time you were in, you said that Catch-22, I think, was it a 2-year, they did a 2-year extension. Is that still hold true?
Catch-21, they're
Catch-21.
under, yeah, no, they signed their option. Yeah, we have them.
Okay. Is it a 10-year lease, Jake?
They actually have, it's 4 5-year options on the table. So
Okay.
we're just in the first option.
Great.
And there was one other thing. When it comes to the immobilization and the way the citations are going to go about, are you guys still looking into that decriminalization, or are we still going through the magistrates for that one?
Still through the magistrates.
All right, thank you.
Looking at financial performance, this is through May. Numbers look great. Revenue is a lot better than what Car Park did anticipate. One thing here, expenses look, obviously phenomenal, and that's just due to some accounting accrual versus cash basis. Some of our bigger items, parking equipment, some maintenance projects, and software fees, along with payroll, really make up the bulk of that 243 that we'll see even out over the next month or two.
Yeah, look, I mean, it looks great, but a lot of it is due to timing of payments and the like. So we'll keep we hope it stays this way for the rest of the year, but likely this will even out. So, but we feel confident we're going to make budget this year.
And then this is obviously just the detail on where we are at. Any questions on this slide? I was gonna.
This is consistent with what we've been seeing here is that with the lower rates, we see more individuals using the garages at the lower rates, freeing up some of the on-street spaces. More folks are using the parking app, Pango, which is a good thing. That's what we expected. So it's consistent with what we were hoping for.
Okay.
Thank you, Jake. Any questions on the operations update?
The 155,000 right off the bat, that's going to come from the SPA. What is that going towards? Do you have that specifically detailed as to what it's going towards?
Yes, we do. It's going to go to the sewer upgrade in Medallion and for the HVAC systems in Papas and Catch 21.
Okay, thanks. Just wanted a clarification there.
Thank you. Well, let's get into the debt restructuring. I think you all know the background here, but just to be briefly, we closed on the original transaction in 2016, and within a few years, we realized that the rate structure that we had approved at that time was not going to be affordable for the Parkers of Scranton. We started to look at what we needed to do to change the rate structure, to lower that rate structure. The pandemic hit in 2020, which made and exacerbated the issues. In 2022, with the work of our Walker Consulting, who did some projections for us, and this body passed a lower rate structure, lowering the garage rates to below the on-street rates. The goal of that was to move long-term parkers into the garage, encourage them to go into the garage. We're seeing some of the benefits of that today, which is good news. We recognized at the time, due to the pandemic and the lower rates that we put in place, that we were going to need to restructure the debt at some point in time. We're working with Alliance Bernstein. They recognized this was coming. They really wanted to, and we wanted to wait to see how we came out of the pandemic, how the new rate structure, the lower rate structure, would affect performance and revenue before we actually went into the bond market. They were also looking to see and wait if interest rates came down. Interest rates really haven't cooperated all that much, a little bit most recently. So, but now, until this time, we've been holding our own. We've been using reserves to cover our operating costs. We've been reserves to pay debt service. And we're at a situation now where Alliance Bernstein is saying, okay, it's time to go back into the market. It's time to restructure these bonds. We have no more reserves to pay future debt service payments, so we're kind of out of reserve. So we really need create a little bit of urgency. And Alliance Bernstein has been working, again, very closely with us, and they really want to get this off their balance sheet. It's a non-performing asset. We all wanted to avoid a default since we didn't have any more reserves to pay debt service. And so now was really the time to effectuate this transaction, with a bond restructure. So we've worked together with Alliance Bernstein and the city with the goal of restructuring the financing with these three goals in mind. Ensure the long-term stability of the system. What does that mean? That means let's not borrow any more money than we have to. We understand what it costs to run the system. We understand what revenue that we're generating from the system. Scranton is growing, but it's not growing extremely fast, so we have a pretty good understanding of what the revenues are going to be over the long term. We hired Walker Consulting to do some projections for us, so making sure that we size the debt for meeting the revenue that the system is projected to generate. Also, maintain an affordable rate structure. We didn't want to go back. We didn't want to raise rates just to pay the bills. We knew we needed to have affordable rates to continue to attract parkers downtown. We needed to have the rates in the garages lower than the rates on the street. We felt pretty strongly about that, and we pushed Alliance Bernstein to allow us to maintain those rates and not come and ask for an increase. And that was very, very important to us as we started these discussions. And also maintain preventative maintenance and capital needs. The garages are very expensive to maintain. They not only need the day-to-day maintenance, but things break. We recognize with the Walker study that we have some shoring issues in Linden. We have to deal with that now. We're getting a cost, trying to figure out what that means, and we have to figure out how to pay for that. So along with maintaining the right debt structure, maintaining affordable rates, and making sure that we have money enough to maintain the capital repairs of the system, it required a lot of cooperation. Alliance Bernstein knew that they may not be able to issue bonds to retire all of their old bonds. They knew that they needed to take a hit. That required some help from the city. That required some help from CDPS to say, what can we do to control expenses? What can we do to make sure that we're identifying all the revenue that maybe we're not capitalizing on the opportunities that exist so that this works as a whole? And we spent the last 6 months or so, Alliance Bernstein wanted to close in January. We're here in July. I think we're getting closer, but there was a very cooperative effort between the city, the bondholder, CDPS, and the Parking Authority to get us to where we are in this proposal that's actually in front of you. The next slides are really the summary of the documents that you received a week ago, that large package of documents that you received. This is a summary of what's being proposed. Issue new bonds to replace the existing. Alliance Bernstein will continue as bondholder. We're not going to be able, and I'll get to this in a minute, Alliance Bernstein knows that we're not going to be able to issue bonds for the full amount of the debt that they have outstanding, which is $45 million. Make modifications to the concession lease and the concession services agreement to enhance the operations. Alliance Bernstein said to us, we need to do everything we can to control expenses. We need to do everything we can to make sure that we're collecting the revenue that you should be collecting, as other cities similar to Scranton are doing in the marketplace. So very important for them. Again, it required a lot of cooperation. And this is going to require approvals from the city, this body, the Parking Authority, which is meeting later today, the Scranton Lackawanna Health and Welfare Authority, who's the issuer of the bonds, CDPS, which is our not-for-profit 501c3, and the bondholder, which is expected to be Alliance Bernstein. One of the key changes as part of this transaction is to take really the Parking Authority out of the middle. Parking Authority owns the garages, city owns the on-street meters. It really was redundant. The decision was made, or the recommendation is being made, that the Parking Authority be removed to the transaction, their assets revert to the city, and that they be dissolved after the closing of the transaction. It'll make it much more efficient. The one benefit to that is it saves cost. There's some redundant expenses. The Parking Authority has to pay audits. The Parking Authority has administrative expenses. And the thought was that that would be a savings, and they actually have some dollars that can be used to help maintain the system. And so the 155 there that you mentioned, Tom.
Yeah, can you give us what's the yearly cost of the Parking Authority in total? Just so the public knows.
I don't know that I know that. Jess?
I know currently they have annual recurring costs for solicitors' fees as well as their audit fees. I would estimate that anywhere between $20,000 and potentially $35,000 a year.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Jess. Thanks, Jess. That sounds about right. So that's part of this proposal. Key changes to the debt structure. Right now, there's 4 series of bonds totaling $45 million. There is expected to be 3 series of bonds, an A, B, and a C. And without getting into the details of that, there's a primary bond, which is to secure the asset. There's a bond, a B bond that will be retired sooner to cover transaction costs. And then there's what's called the capital appreciation bond. And that's a bond only gets paid if there's money to pay it. If there's money not to pay, if there isn't money to pay it, the interest will accrue and add to that principal. So it's a way for us to push, or the bondholder to push some of the costs that can't be afforded from the operations sort of back a ways. Now that's very different than the $30 million. The $45 million is very different than the $30 million that this revenue that we generate can afford. Alliance Bernstein recognizes that. I mean, they would like that to be a lower number, And we worked very closely with them, with the city, to, again, put this package together so that we could try to keep that to a minimum. That's a good thing for, it's a good thing for us, it's a good thing for the city. When this comes back to the city in a bunch of years, sooner if you want it back sooner, there'll be less debt to pay. So that's a good thing. It's like you had a mortgage and you were relieved of a part of it. So it's not great for Alliance Bernstein, but in the long run, good for us. But again, we had to work together to try to get something that worked for them as well. Interest rate between 5.75 and 6.75. Another benefit, interest only for 3 years with payments significant, or principal payments starting in 29. We stretched out the payments to 2070. It'll give us more time to pay to keep the payments lower. There's a $200,000 capital reserve set aside after the senior bond payment is made. That's going to be from operations. We worked very hard with the city to identify savings in our budget so that we could set some of that money aside. One of the examples is power washing. We can set that money aside to make capital improvements when we need to. That was very important to us. Nobody wants these garages to look like they did in 2016. So we want to make sure we have enough money to improve them. Cost of issuance, those are, fees with the transaction. Those are trying to be held really close, and nobody's coming out of pocket. It'll be financed as part of the transaction. And then a modified flow of funds to incentivize CDPS, us, because we'll be here for a long time, to make operational changes to increase revenues to support the system. That's, for example, the solar system we've been talking about, working with the city on the power washing, for example, giving us incentives to try to benefit the system as a whole, to raise money from savings of operations to make capital improvements for the system.
So now, with this new legislation, every 2 years, the power washing will be our responsibility. So what did it actually cost when you guys did it?
It was, if we did all the garages in 1 year, $120,000. We'd have to hire a contractor to go do that. The city doesn't have the manpower. The city has the equipment, doesn't have the manpower to do them all at once, but the plan is to get them on a schedule. So it will be.
We do have a power wash, right?
A garage a year, 2 garages a year, and they'll be sort of on a cycle.
When it comes to the $200,000 per year, do we know that that's going to be spent per year? You already know that you're going to use
I'm
at
pretty
least that
confident
amount of
we'll
money for capital improvements?
Oh, yeah. We did the study from Walker, identified needs of about $600,000 a year. We expect to go out and apply for grants. We're looking for, as part of this, support from the city to supplement that 200. So we feel pretty good that we'll be able to meet the needs of the system. And it's not going to be even, right? You may have a couple $100,000 in 1 year, 100,000, but then you might have $2 million in year 3 or 4, because some of the needs get bigger as the garages get older.
Yeah, I noticed the city is obligated to $200,000 per year, but if we don't pay it in 1 year, we have to make up for it in additional years.
Yeah,
correct?
and that's the reason, Tom. It's because the needs aren't level, right? We might have, again, 200,000 here, 100, 300, but then we might have a big repair because we have to resurface one whole garage, and that might be a couple $1 million. So the goal is to make sure we have enough money when we need it to make those bigger repairs later.
Yeah. In past presentations, I believe that you guys came and you presented that you would be looking for grants for some of the capital improvements.
Yes.
Have you received any grants or been awarded any grants in the past or since 2016?
The city has been very good about assisting us with some of the federal money that they've received. We've applied for the state multimodal grant. We've applied for the LSA grant, which we expect to do every year. It looks like Community Development Block Grant may go away in the new federal budget, so that was a possibility for things like the elevator and handicapped accessibility. So the answer is yes. We're always looking for those opportunities, and we make applications every year. It's very difficult to get money for operations. We may get some for capital. And again, if we work closely with the city, they're closer and in tune to what's available. And Jake will be doing all the writing, but we just need to be able to know when and where to go apply. We're more than happy to apply.
Yeah. So you've applied in the past but haven't been awarded
Correct.
anything?
No, just to clarify, initially following the initial transaction in 2016, there was a multimodal that was awarded. The city at that time provided the grant match for that, so there was one multimodal.
Right.
And that would have been 2016?
Yeah.
And I think just to add on to that as well, it's important to note the amendments in the lease concession agreement that are before you now also require, before the city's funds are released, that we ensure CDPS has made all of those grant applications, that they're applying for everything available to them, and that they're reporting to us their plans for capital asset management.
So we're gonna have full plans for capital asset.
Yeah, we'll be required to
We've
provide a
got-
5-year
Let's get
plan.
back to your presentation and get that
Oh,
complete,
great.
so we don't miss any of it.
Thank you, Jerry. Key changes to the concession agreement. Again, Alliance Bernstein, this was again, cooperative discussions, asked us to, what changes can we make to the concession agreements to make sure we're being as efficient as possible, controlling costs, identifying capital, and identifying revenues. This is a long list here. I'll go through them quickly. Eliminate provisions that no longer needed. We complied with a lot of the requirements of the first concession agreement, and it just made sense to take them out. Substitute the parking authority for the city, or the city for the parking authority. Extend both terms to 27, I mentioned that. Added an annual CapEx to provide for the city for this is the 200,000, Tom, that you mentioned, a year for 10 years to do for capital garages. We're responsible to apply for grants. We'll be responsible to submit a 5-year budget to you every September as part of the city's capital planning so that you know exactly what we're going to be doing with the dollars. City to provide the power washing at least once every 2 years. That's a savings of potentially $120,000 a year, all to go to capital improvements of the garages. The 155 from the parking authority. Parking tax, that's already in the concession agreement. It's a continuation. Extended hours of enforcement. We'll talk about this a little bit more in a minute. Right now, we enforce on the street from 8 a.m. to 5. We're proposing to extend that to 7. Currently on Saturdays, there's no enforcement. We're proposing that we enforce on Saturdays from 8 to 7. Update meter citation rates, hang tag fee and bag fee. Those haven't been updated since 2016. I think we're going from $20 to $25. If you want to close off a meter, it's $25 a day. And if you're a contractor and you want to buy a hang tag for your car because you do a lot of work in downtown, you can buy a one-time pass, and that's going from $225 to $250. So modest increases. They haven't been increased since 2016. And there's a schedule now, along with the rate schedule, that's part of what you'll be asking to approve, so that those will increase with inflation along with the rest of the rates, which makes sense.
Now, the rate increase in 2026 was part of the original 2016 rate schedule, correct?
Correct.
The 26 increase that we're seeing and hearing about now
Well,
was going to...
we updated the rate schedule in 2022. That's when we lowered the rates. So that's the current one that we're using, and we're not proposing to change that.
Okay.
And again, the city retains the authority to designate locations for metered spaces in conjunction with the downtown study.
Now, when it comes to getting the bond and the bondholders, is it contingent upon getting the bond that we expand these hours by three hours a day and the Saturdays as well? Is that contingent upon?
This is all one plan. It's one package. And if anything changes in this plan, we need to go back to the bondholders and have these conversations. Because remember, they've used these discussions to model, to put together a financial model to determine how much revenue is going to be generated, how does that determine how much money we can borrow. So yes, if any of this changes, it changes the financial model, it changes the debt structure, and we would have to go back and talk to them, absolutely.
And do you have those projections as to how much revenue is going to be generated from the increase and the expansion?
And I'm going to get to that. So what are the benefits of all of this? Well, for one, we avoid a financial default. I mean, we've been making our payments, but barely. We've been using reserves between the pandemic and the lower rates. We knew this time was coming, and now it's time for really Alliance Bernstein and us to try to get this to a place where it works long-term for the city of Scranton and downtown and the Parkers. Maintain the existing affordable rate structures. It was important to us that we didn't change that. We lowered them to 29 in 2022. We think it's the right schedule. We want to stay with that schedule, and we're not recommending we change that at all. Match the debt structure with the long-term performance. Again, Alliance Bernstein is going from $45 million to $30 million. That's a big deal for them. They want to know they have good partners in here. They don't want to come in and run this. They don't want to come in and run a parking system. Nobody suggested that. It didn't even come up. But they recognize they have a good partner in the city, They have an operator in us that's paying attention to the details, and these discussions were again, done in cooperation to try to make this, balancing all those very difficult competing needs. Establish a capital reserve to maintain the physical structures. I think we've done that very well. There's never enough money to maintain these perfectly. You make judgments. What can we delay? What do we have money to do? We need X dollars this year. We may need $3 million next year. It's a balancing act forever. Garages in the Northeast are just a bear. They're a challenge to maintain, and they're expensive to maintain, and they need support regularly. I think we have a plan in this that covers that. Reduce the overall debt by $15 million. Again, 45 to 30. It's a big deal. Modernize operations to enhance revenue and minimize expenses. I mentioned this, and I'll talk about these details in a minute. But Alliance Bernstein was clear. We're going to take a $15 million hit here. We want to know that the city is supporting us on the capital side. We want to know that CDPS is doing what they can to minimize expenses and identify revenue that's consistent with what's out there and available and consistent with what other cities are doing in Pennsylvania. This is some detail on what those suggestions are. The power washing, that was in our budget. We took the $120,000 out of our budget. The city is going to perform this. That $120,000 is going right to the capital repair reserve line. We're proposing to pass along credit card fees to users, $90,000 a year. We're talking about cents on the dollar, but there's a lot of transactions, so that adds up. I think you've seen this. It's a common practice. Those are fees that we currently pay because we collect credit card payments. That was one of the things that Alliance Bernstein asked us to consider, and we said that we would, and we will pass that along to users, and it's a few cents on each transaction, but adds up to real money. Extending the hours of enforcement on the meter parking. I mentioned this earlier. You know, in talking to folks, we extending hours from during the week on Monday to Friday from 5 to 7, we really think solves a problem by taking, and on Saturday actually, by taking the long-term parkers off the street and getting them in the garages. Downtown Scranton has really grown. There's a lot more residential downtown. There's a lot more retail downtown, a lot more restaurants coming downtown. And what you're experiencing, it's a good thing. Growth is good, but with growth comes challenges. And those challenges are more parkers who are looking for a place to park. And if your parking is no charge on end of the day and on the weekends, folks will come home at 5 o'clock on a Friday, they'll park their car in the street, it'll stay there all weekend. That is actually not a good thing for the retailers and the businesses downtown. So when we say,
how many people are actually doing that? Like,
we did some car counts. We did it during the week on Tuesdays and Thursdays, and what we found is, I don't have numbers of parkers, but I came in yesterday. I came in between 6:30 and 7 o'clock. It's a Monday. Most restaurants are closed. The retailers were closed. The streets between Franklin and Adams and Lackawanna and Linden, full of cars. Monday morning, 8 o'clock, I went for a walk. They're all gone. These are mostly folks who are living downtown, parking on the street long term, and we think that is like most cities who enforce parking later in the evening and on the weekends, usually Saturdays, usually Sundays free. It's to free up those spaces for the short-term parkers. Come in and get lunch, come in and get your coffee, go to the hairdresser or the barber or to get your nails done. These are folks who are going to be an hour or two, and they want to find a spot close to where they're going. And I understand that. I know this is going to be a very challenging for a lot of business owners to understand, but honestly, it's going from free to charge sounds like a bad thing, right? It was free, now it's charging. That's got to be bad, right? But I think in most cities, the experience is if you take the longer-term parkers off the street and get them in the garages, the turnover on street with the enforcement actually frees up spaces to allow folks to have more access to and closer to where they want to go.
So wait a second, excuse me, so you're extending, your proposal is extending 2 hours during the weekdays.
Correct.
And then from, the legislation I have says from 7 to 6 p.m.
For Saturday?
Yeah, for Saturday. All right, so who's going to police this? You're going to hire people with overtime? I mean,
we
is
have
there a
staff,
benefit analysis? Did you even look at that? What
Yeah,
the cost
no, we did. I mean, and this is the last bullet here. So what we think this does, and I'll get to the numbers in 1 second, Mark, it corrects the imbalance, because in any parking system, you really want the long-term parkers to be off the street, and you want the short-term spaces to be free so cars can come and go. That's the idea. That's why we lowered the rates in 2022. This was recommended by our parking consultant in 2016. It was recommended again in 2022, and we knew it was going to be a very sensitive topic, and so we didn't pursue it. But now this is, with this bond restructuring, it's becoming that more important and that more urgent. And I'll share a list in a minute of other municipalities in Pennsylvania who are actually doing this. But
with us lowering the garage rates in 2022, was that not effective? What other methods have we tried to get long-term parkers off of the streets and in the garages?
The goal of lowering the rates is to move parkers. You're right, longer-term parkers, not parkers who are going to stay for days, right? It was the parker who would stay for 3 hours. Well, I'm going to save $4 if I go into the garage, right? I'm willing to walk a couple blocks. So it was that parker, right? The parker who parked on the street and stayed for 2-3 hours because they don't like to park in a garage, and the garage was $4 an hour. Well, that was really a disincentive. So a lot of parkers parked on the street. So we do see that working, but where we see the issue is in the core of downtown, where a lot of the spaces on North Washington and Lackawanna are really taken up by folks who aren't short-term parkers. They're long-term parkers. They're residents or office workers or retail workers who are taking up a space and staying all weekend. That's a disincentive to us, and that's the reason. And this is, yeah, there's revenue attached, but that's not the driver for us. The driver is to correct that imbalance that we see in the reason that other cities actually enforce on the weekend, especially cities that are growing like Scranton. I mean, Scranton is it's a great downtown. It's got a lot of unique retail. It's got coffee shops. It's really is a great downtown. You want that come and go traffic. You want that space to be freed up so somebody else can pull in after the first person grabs their coffee and goes. You don't want someone to sit there all day or all week or for hours on end. And that's what you're experiencing. And that's only going to get worse as Scranton continues to grow and add more residents and add more businesses. So we really do think it's a longer term issue that I think needs to be corrected. It does put Scranton in line with other similar cities in PA. And to talk about the revenue, Monday to Friday, potential revenue of $97,000 and $74,600 on Saturday. That does not include additional, that's net of the staffing cost, Mark, to your point, and that does not include additional maybe citation revenue, because that's just too hard to predict. So, again, this revenue was included in the financial model for the bondholders to size the debt. So yes, any change to this would affect the structure of the transaction. So,
Hey, Dave,
yep.
you have a meeting with the parking authority, but before you go, and you're going to have to come back because there's a lot more.
Sure,
to go over
sure,
this, okay?
absolutely.
But to make it clear, the raise, the 25 cents an hour, that raise, that was put in 2016. That's not new. Let me finish. So that's not new. And then the $5 bagging fee increase, that's not new. That was all put in the last contract. And then the $50 service permit fee, that's not new. So all of the fees that are coming in 2026 are not new. They've been in this contract since 2016. So that's not a problem because it was done back then. It wasn't just done. So that is already in the contract. So that was a concern that it's being raised, but it's not being raised by us. This was done in the past. This contract was done.
The only rates we're changing now are the bag fees and the permit fees, which have not changed since 2016
Right,
because
but
they
this
were
is
not taken into account.
This is not a new fee that we just came up with?
Not a new fee.
Okay.
It's just an adjustment fee for inflation. But you're right, Jerry, the fee schedule that was approved in 2022 when we lowered the rates to $1 an hour in the garages is not changing. So the rate increase in 2026, that's the first rate increase in 4 years, and it was approved in 2022. And at that time, we all agreed that would stay the same for 4 years. So that was scheduled. This was a scheduled increase. It's not part of this transaction.
Okay. Now, before you go to your next meeting, I did ask you in the beginning of the meeting when you first got here today to go back to your bondholders and explain to them our problem with the Saturday. Okay? We'd really like you to go back and ask them to relieve us from that. That's really, really a tough thing to do, but I would appreciate if you go back and give it a try.
We hear that, absolutely.
Okay?
Yes, I think just to add from the administration standpoint, President Smurl, in anticipation of this evening's meeting, the administration also, particularly Mayor Cognetti, heard from a number of concerned citizens and businesses. So happy to see that they're all here today and voicing their concerns. In light of that, it is also our position from the administration. We know that time is of the essence, so we don't want to see this legislation tabled, but we are prepared and will be going back to the bondholders with our team here to see what accommodations we can make relative to Saturday enforcement. So we anticipate there may be some changes. We'll keep you abreast of developments as they occur daily between now and next Tuesday. But that is something we absolutely will be advocating for and discussing in the coming days.
Okay, because that Saturday is very important. So, and we need to reschedule another meeting since you've got to go to the parking authority.
So
I know that's another part of your meeting, so I'd like that to be done. Mr. Voldenberg, if you will set that all up.
Can we actually ask if when you're done next door, can you come over and we could continue in fifth order as we have in the past?
Sure, we're here.
Okay, as Mr. Smurl said, and I expressed it last week, my concern was businesses in Scranton who have also been affected by loss of revenues during COVID. Did you reach out to them? Did we get their input? And I don't want to see that they also suffer from some of the things that are going to happen here. So when we looked at the 97,000 and the 74,600, I believe, when it comes to parking enforcement, that money that's going to be shored up or those revenues or additional savings that we're going to get, we're going to have parking enforcement is going to be out for extended hours and now on Saturdays. Is that included in those numbers as well?
It's taken out of those numbers already.
Okay, so those salaries or those
Correct.
those payments will be are taken out of that already.
Yeah, that's right. Yep.
I just wanted to make one quick point. I wasn't going to ask any more questions at this time, but even if the times weren't being changed, I think it is so important that we have it clearly posted, the hours of operation on the meters. Too many people are getting gypped and deceived and missing that, and I see it constantly on the weekends or times when it's not under hours of operation. We've been asking for that for years, and we've been told, well, it does tell you, but fine print doesn't count in my opinion. So we need to have that clear. No matter what the hours are, people need to know, or we need to have an automatic shut off for the system, or it won't accept payment outside of those hours.
Yeah, and a couple things. If you use the app, it doesn't let you pay. So,
but the meter does.
But the meter does. So what we did last summer is we made the print bigger, we put it in red and in bold so people can see the hours. Now, maybe we need to go back and say, in big rolled flashing letters, say, don't pay, it's not due. We can change the messaging. I mean, people need to we do collect revenue on the weekends, and that's not in that number, by the way, so that's money that we would be losing or we'd be getting because we're getting already. But that's not the intent. The intent is to try to let people know, and I think we've tried to increase that by putting it in red and in bold. We haven't looked at the numbers recently to see if it's changed, but I think we still need to look into, does the technology exist so that we can shut it off and not accept payment at all? That's still to be determined.
I mean, I know that's possible
I'm
in
sure
a lot
we
of
can
other
figure it out.
places, so
Sure we
I
can
think
figure
we
it
can
out.
make it possible too.
Okay.
Thank you.
Can I just make one more quick statement before you leave? And I appreciate it. So as I sit here, people to the left of me, colleagues to the right of me, we serve at the pleasure of the residents, as most of you do. Your job or your consent agreement is to provide service to our residents. And I look in the crowd, I also see business owners whose objective is to provide service to residents and customers. And even our regular speakers that come here, when they speak at that podium, for the most part, sometimes they're representing others that they're afraid to speak. So they speak on behalf of what they think is the best interest and needs of the residents. So when I think about the Saturday part of it, I don't think we're serving our residents with that piece of it, serving in their best interest, charging them, for the residents that live in these beautiful apartments downtown, how do they get to the store? How do they bring their groceries in? That's the time when they have the freedom to do that, or have visitors, grandchildren. So I can't speak on behalf of everyone here, but that's how I feel. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, thank you. We will continue this.
Thank you.
We'll start our regular meeting in a few minutes. Anybody need the